Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have John Gronen on the line, and he's CFO over at Yooz. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having me.
All right, John. So we're recording this for everybody listening in the beginning of January. So big CFO time here. All year is a big CFO time. Who are we kidding? So I'm glad to have you on this show. But getting into this, I'm interested into how the evolution of the CFO role has changed. And there's a lot more moving parts nowadays. Higher fraud risk, growing pressure to deliver innovation and even information. So I want to get into all of that and more. But first, just to get us kicked off, John, how'd you get into the business? Did you always know you were kind of going the CFO route? Where'd that start for you?
No, I actually didn't. So I going through school, I actually double majored in finance and criminal justice. And so my original intention was to go into the FBI or the U.S. Marshal Service. And then right in my last semester when I started applying, doing interviews, I realized that I didn't have the vision to qualify to get in. So you had to have better than 20, I think it was 2100 or 2150 then, and mine was worse than that. And so it wound up kind of forcing me into finance, and I wound up taking a job in banking with a guy who was buying a bank and then branching it and opened a broker-dealer and a trust company. And it wound up being an unbelievable opportunity for me to learn mergers and acquisitions, to think outside the box, to learn all kinds of things. So it kind of set me on the path of finance.
Wow, what a great story. How old were you back then, when you first started, just roughly when this transition was happening?
26.
Wow, what a great age.
Yeah.
That's a great age to be in the middle of all of that, to think. What was that like?
It was incredible. It was, for the first few months, it was just, French Hill and I. French Hill is now the chairman of the House Banking Committee. And so he's gotten out of banking and into Congress. But it was just the two of us. And so it was really an opportunity to, take on all kinds of new things and really have to dig in. So it was early days of the internet. So I was figuring out, pricing for a broker dealer, for example, an investment company. So it was looking at how do other companies, large and small investment companies, price their services, and then trying to come up with kind of a matrix that worked for our size business and our clientele. And so it really forced me to think about things that I didn't really know and go learn things, which has kind of carried through my career. So when I say it really set me on the path, it really did, because it created this mindset in me of always wanting to learn and always needing to expand my knowledge base. And it, continues to today.
Man, what a great story. And thanks for sharing that. I'm just trying to imagine what it was like back in the early internet days and trying to get all these things together, pricing and the matrix. And you're like, that must have been, you're really pioneering being around that time and that day. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was we opened a bunch of different branches. And so he's like, I want you to work on opening the branches. And so figure out the IT system, figure out, where do we get an ATM machine? So as a 26-year-old kid, I'm like, well, who sells ATM machines? And so it was great. It really forced you to tackle new things and constantly learn. And so it was unbelievable as a first job. Looking back on my career, I think I am where I am today because of French Hill giving me that opportunity.
Amazing. Speaking of today, let's get into Yooz. So first, maybe start off with telling us a little bit about the company.
So Yooz is a AP automations and payments company. And so the core product of the company is really AP automations. And so it's the ability to ingest an invoice in an electronic form. So having it emailed into an inbox within the system, have the system pick it up and code it for you, and then route it for all of the approvals, and then ultimately move it on to the payment side, where we offer a variety of payment services like virtual credit card, check, ACH, real-time payments. And so the ability to kind of ingest all of that in an automated form and really cut down on the amount of time that an AP clerk spends getting either a paper or an email invoice, saving it, scanning it and saving it, and then manually coding it. So it removes all of those manual errors, and it frees up a lot of time for AP folks to focus on things that are more value added for the business, like vendor analysis and pricing analysis, reconciling accounts, and those things that add way more value to the org versus just sitting there keying in coding for what department and what account does this go to. So the system uses machine learning. So after it sees the invoice and how you coded it the first time, the machine learning takes over and it codes it automatically. So it takes the processing of an invoice from kind of ingestion, coding, routing for approvals to payment from about 11 to 12 minutes down to about 2 minutes per invoice.
Wow,
so if you kind of do that math on a lot of invoices, on 100 invoices, you're saving roughly about 800 minutes a month. On 1,000 invoices, it multiplies so quickly. And so you can really free up your team. And as you scale a business, you either don't need to add more people to do AP, or you can use those people to do other things that, like I said, are way more value added to your organization.
Yeah. So speaking of scaling up, what's the sweet spot for the client base? Is this for enterprise? Is this for small business? Both? Talk to me about that piece.
Both. We run the gamut. So as I think about our customer base of roughly about 7,500 customers globally, we're in 42 different countries. So it'll work with almost any ERP system that are out there or accounting system that are out there. So I think we're right now connected to north of 240 different ERPs. So everything from QuickBooks Online to Oracle. And so really we can service small customers who are only processing 100 invoices a month all the way up to customers that are processing a couple 100,000 a month. And we have customers that kind of run in every vein of that.
Wow, that's super helpful. When I think about especially some of the small businesses where that can get, depending on the type of company, depending on what it's doing, like that can significantly cut down cost, which is obviously when you're, or even some of these more lean startups that are going and some of the new ways that people are raising money, it just becomes interesting and what you can do with that money, right?
Yeah, really interesting. And our model is we sell the software as a service, and then we also have the payment side. And using virtual credit cards, it generates interchange, which we then rebate back to our customers. So it can offset the cost of other payment modalities, such as check or ACH. And then also, in some cases, it's offsetting the cost of Yooz software itself. And so we have a handful of customers that we actually pay to use our system and our payments. Like their virtual card rebate is enough to actually cover everything. And you can imagine as a CFO, that's really impactful to your business. You're not paying for the software or your payments. You're actually getting paid to do that. So it turns an expense into a revenue item for you.
Wow. And so speaking from, the CFO's point of view to the other CFOs that are listening, all these different mandates for CFO changes in recent years, the pressures driving this shift, it sounds to me like Yooz can become an integral part of what's going on. Am I off on that?
No, you're dead on with it. Increasingly, CFOs are being asked to be more strategists, more into managing risk and enabling growth, and less about, kind of transactionally just the stewardship of the business. And so that shift is requiring us to think forward. I had a CEO that I worked for years and years ago who once said technology changes 100% every 5 years. And so we need to change 25% every year to stay ahead of the curve. And that was probably 25 years ago for me, and it stuck with me. And so I always think, and every time I'm talking to a CFO or anyone in the finance world, I'm like, look, you need to be thinking about how do you constantly improve on what you're doing. And there are new tools out there that can help. And AP automation is one of those. There's a handful of other things, but AP automation is a very simple one to put in place for your business that frees up your employees, it lowers your expenses, it lowers your need to continually add more headcount as the business scales up, and it gives you more visibility into your spend and your cash management. So it ticks a lot of boxes for CFOs.
Yeah, I can see that. So shifting slightly here, how does this idea work into the concept of lean finance operations? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so at Yooz, we've kind of created this lean financial operations mentality, which is taking lean operations that was originally kind of developed for the manufacturing industry and applying it to finance. So it's really about eliminating waste and excess within your finance organization. So it's kind of a CFO first operating model that's built on a bunch of different pillars. One of which is expert AI knowledge. So the ability to use AI to automate document capture, validation, fraud prevention, and then ultimately payments. We have a really powerful workflow engine that standardizes all of these processes. And so you don't need a standard invoice template. We can ingest any invoice template, and the AI picks off the pieces that it needs to code to it. So if it's a new vendor, it will pick up all of the vendor information, their name and address, vendor ID, their bank account information, all of that from the invoice. It picks up the invoice date, the due date, the item line level detail, taxes, all of that, and codes that for you. And so it really is a powerful engine to reduce friction and the handoff in between departments. And then it creates operational transparency for you. So the ability to really get visibility into your cash flow and your liabilities and what's standing out there that needs to be paid or needs to be coded, all while doing that. And kind of the fourth pillar is really around secure financial operations. So having a system that we've built using AI to look at fraud and prevent fraud. And so I think I've seen a bunch of different numbers float around the internet, but it's something like 80% of companies experience some form of AP fraud each year. And the fraudsters sit out there just looking for ways to send a fraudulent invoice and hoping that an overworked AP clerk will just process that invoice and push a payment before they realize it's
I feel
fraud.
like everybody's gotten an email like that at this point. If you've been in business for 5 years, everybody's received an email like this, or somebody's got like a random DocuSign or something. You're like, what's this? We don't spam, right?
Yeah, like you see it all the time. You see emails from your CFO or your CEO rather, or maybe even your CFO saying, hey, I need to wire this money out to this account right now. Can you please do this immediately? And there's a lot of different signs of fraud. A sense of urgency is one of the biggest ones that they rely on because they're pushing you to do it as quick as possible so you don't have time to think about what you're doing. Does this make sense? And that's where AP automation really, I think, plays a big part in fraud prevention. It's freeing up, like I said, taking an invoice from 10 minutes to 2 minutes. That 8 minutes is 8 minutes that your AP clerk can spend thinking about, does this make sense? Is this a vendor that we really use? Is it a legitimate vendor? Or did a bank account change? And so Yooz uses AI to actually look at those invoices and see, has the invoice been manipulated? Is it a vendor that we've seen before, or is it net new? Have details on the invoice changed, such as the bank account and routing number? And it flags all those things so that it's not going to prevent fraud by itself, but what it does is give you a leg up on the fraudsters to say, this one looks suspicious. Take a little more time and look at it a little deeper.
I like that, by the way, John. Yooz uses. Come on, man.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it came
Say
from.
that
right?
10 times fast.
Yeah, the name is very catchy. Like when you think about it, it's Yooz because you use it.
I had to. I couldn't let you get away with that one.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, John, this has been great having you on today, man. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing more about your backstory and also what you're doing over at Yooz. That being said, for everybody listening, how do they connect? How do they learn more about Yooz?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is really to go to our website. So it's getyooz.com, getyooz.com. And if you want to see a demo and you want to learn a little more about the system, in the upper right-hand corner of the website, there's a book a demo that will ask for your information, and then a salesperson will reach out to you, and then they can give you a demo of the system, talk to you about pricing. But it's probably the easiest way to reach out to us.
Fantastic. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put a link in the show notes so you can click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, this is a daily show. Yes, you heard me correct. Daily, each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. We have plenty of great interviews coming up for you, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And John, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate you.
Adam, thanks for having me.